affair with innovations and outside-the-box thinking started in 2013. I remember I was in my facilities getting ready to see my new patient, and my nurses were always very protective of me. And my in-charge nurse said, "Dr. Nazir, watch out, room 9, son is really upset." So I always appreciated that cautionary notion from my staff, because it was always a signal for me that it's an opportunity to connect. Because you see, most of these people who were upset in their rooms waiting for me were not really upset at me. They were really upset with the healthcare system, because somehow the healthcare system or the hospital had not met their needs. They were hoping that their primary care physician will be there to see and welcome them, but they never saw their primary care physician. They saw a hospitalist. They thought they were going to go home, and they ended up in a freaking nursing home, and they didn't like that. So most of the times, it was a notion for me to sit down and give them lend them an empathetic ear, and after 10 minutes, they were very good friends of me. So I always knew that I had an opportunity to build new connection, new friendship in a situation like that. But this was a little bit different. The son was really upset. The issue was that his father just never came from the hospital with a prescription of a pain pill, and it took him a long time before his pain could have been addressed. So I did all my defensive pleas and tried to calm him down, but the son would not listen. And after 15 minutes of that kind of a negotiation and back and forth, I got really frustrated, and I was ready to walk out of the room. The son said something really interesting. And he said, "Dr. Nazir, let me know that my local burger joint provides better care than your facility, provides better service than your facility." And I was like already labeled him irrational. I like shook my head and walked out of the patient room. Well, it was Friday. A couple days later, when I woke up on Sunday, I had this understanding. I said, you know what? Like any care service provider to a customer, all we are a vendor of a service to our customers, which are our patients. And in the bottom line is that this patient, or this customer, was just unhappy. End of the story. I'll come back to the story in a second, but let me tell you that that understanding, that approach to healthcare, not only changed me as a clinician, but also gave me a new perspective as a person in day-to-day life. I started thinking differently. I started making these interesting connections between different settings. For example, starting thinking about care coordination as an air traffic control system, thinking about my healthcare facility like a restaurant, and so forth. Now this skill or this ability or this understanding to start thinking about things differently and observing them differently, starting questioning everything you do to try to do it in a different way, and try to make associations between one setting and another setting, and then experimenting to come up with a new kaleidoscopic idea is basically the gist of innovation. Dr. Clayton Christensen, in his book Innovator's DNA, really describes that really, really well. So why is the urgency? Why now? Why should we be worried about changing right now? Well, I'll share with you, as you can see in this graph, that the information tsunami we are facing at this point is really changing all of us. You may not know that you and your customers and your patients all are changing, because over the last few decades, our little minds have to be facing so much information around antibiotics discoveries, DNA discoveries, nuclear energy, the computing power of the internet, artificial intelligence, robotics, you name it and you have it. This amazing data fact from US Chamber of Commerce published in this poster just boggles my mind, and I think will boggle your mind, that the amount of data generated these age in 2 days is more than the data that was ever generated for the mankind before 2003. I'm just going to give you 3 seconds to think about that. Wow. So how do we deal with this kind of information that is really, really impacting us as people, as parents, as doctors, and nurses, so forth? So let me share with you a personal story, okay? I'm a geriatrician, and I've been trained to be very conservative when it comes to prescribing antibiotics, because I want to be an antibiotic steward. So my wife got sick with a cold a few weeks back, and I came back from work. She said, "Arif, I need to go to a doctor. I need an antibiotic." I said, "Don't try to be a doctor, okay? It's a viral infection, settle down, you'll be fine. 3 days you'll be running around." And guess what happened? 3 days passed by, and she was worse. Well, she came into the room, I was sitting there after work, I still remember, and she was coughing, and she just passed by me. She didn't even look at me. She went and opened her laptop, and I was like sitting there looking at her. She didn't look happy at all. She opened up her laptop, went her to a company website, and got an appointment with a teledoctor, and had antibiotics in her hand in 2 hours. And she was better in a couple days. Guess what happened to me the next few days? I was invisible for her. I was actually more invisible than usual, let's say it that way. I was kind of irrelevant. So guys, it's just example to show you, it's nothing that I did wrong, that I deserve that, nothing that you and I are going to do wrong, that we deserve invisibility or relevance, but the society around us is moving so fast, the data is changing us so quickly that we are all becoming at risk of becoming irrelevant. This amazing study at Babson Olin School of Business clearly puts that in perspective in 2011, and they said that, you like it or not, within the next 10 years, 40% of the Fortune 500 companies will no longer exist. It's not that they're going to go low quality or they're going to provide bad care to their customers. It's just that what the solution they offer is just not going to be relevant anymore. Our patients now, as you know, have a 24/7 access to their heart rate, to their rhythm, to their breathing patterns, right? They don't have to wait every quarter to come to the doctor's office and get a pretty inaccurate blood pressure reading, right? They expect that their pulse and their rhythm problems should be addressed right at the moment when they figure it out. Our patients who used to be in nursing homes, sitting around being bored, don't expect to be bored. They want robotic seals like Paro to be there and entertain them and improve their life quality, right? Our patients who used to be restricted to wheelchairs because of paraplegia hate to be sitting in the wheelchairs anymore. They want exoskeletons to help them move around and walk around and be as independent as they can be. Similarly, a lot of our patients who were bedridden, like our nursing home patients and others, who only had the option to lay around and stare at the ceiling, refuse to do that anymore because they have ability to go to their bucket list vacation spots by the use of virtual reality technologies. Now we all have a decision here to make, that what kind of a healthcare providers are we going to be? What kind of an organization we're going to be? If our patients come to us asking with some different expectations for different solutions to their problems, are we going to give them a very blank stare or look away? Or are we going to be ready to meet their expectations and incorporate some very impressive technologies in their day-to-day care plans? And I hope that we build a culture that we are ready to do the latter. Talking about innovation culture, I really respect Eric Weiner for his writings on how you create an innovation culture. Now, there are many, many great examples for us to look around and to get some advice on innovative culture. You have Google, you have Facebook, you have Amazon, right? Well, Eric would disagree with you, and in his recent Harvard Business Review article, he writes, those hoping to launch the world's next great innovation hub would be better off looking to an older or even more remarkable genius cluster. And he's talking about the Renaissance. I'm sure many of you would agree that Renaissance was an era for amazing innovative explosion that happened in that time and really pretty set us up in a very different path of a lifestyle which we have today. And for innovation to happen, you have to have 4 things. You have to have a problem which is important. You have to have a new solution. That then gets adopted, and that then provides a value to the stakeholders. Now, if you're missing the last 2 things, I'm sorry, it's not innovation, okay? It's an invention. So make sure that we understand the difference between invention and innovation. Now, making a very fancy nursing facility with all the amenities included in it is not innovation. But having people live in their houses longer than they could have through the use of robotics, computers, and virtual companions becomes innovation. Where you install these granny pods made by Med Cottage in the backyard of people so that their loved ones can stay for them for a longer time becomes innovation. Walter Isaacson, who's known and writing for his biographies of many important people in the world, recently published his amazing biography on Leonardo da Vinci. And he talks a lot about this gentleman's ability to innovate. He thinks of him as wildly imaginative, critically curious, and willfully observant. And then he talks a lot about Leonardo da Vinci's ability to be patient. Creativity requires a lot of patience and time, all right? And actually, organizational psychology has now proven that for your work to be innovative, you shouldn't be wrapping it up quickly, okay? You have to do something that is called active procrastination. You have to think about the idea, put your ideas aside, let them simmer in your mind, and you come back to that. Adam Grant, organizational psychology professor from Wharton School of Business, a young guy who has kind of changed concepts around laziness and procrastination, gives us this quote: "I was going to teach myself to procrastinate, but I decided to put it off and do it later." Isn't that cool? So he specifically talks about people's ability to curb the urge to finish a project quickly. And he gives us amazing examples. And he says procrastination gives you time to consider divergent ideas, to think in non-linear ways, to make unexpected leaps. He gives us an example again of Leonardo da Vinci, who took 16 years to wrap up Mona Lisa. He also gives us the example of Martin Luther King Jr. about his amazing speech, "I Have a Dream" speech, and said he did not wrap up that speech within a few seconds before he delivered those words. And those those amazing words, "I have a dream," were added just before he delivered that speech. So it's an amazing, amazing ability of innovators to take time to finish their projects, let their thoughts simmer before they perfect their idea. One important ability innovators have, they're always thinking about new ideas, like why this table is here, why this desk is here, why this patient has to sit in a chair, why do I have to walk in and have a stethoscope on my neck, why, all right? Well, as they question the default, these people who are innovators do a lot of little experiments every single day in their practice. They'll try things differently, they make a different opening every day to their patient, sometimes they give a hug, sometimes they pat on the back, sometimes they just touch the patient's leg, all different kind of strategies. Some strategies work and some do not work. So one of the attributes of the innovators is what? They fail a lot. But they don't call it failure. They call it, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." An amazing quote from Thomas Edison, who gives us some confidence that it's okay to screw up. Now, this is just a quick approach where our team came together to innovate in the trenches. The idea here is for me to share that with you is the fact that every single team member in your team has some amazing skills that you need to cash on in. You don't have to be Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo to make a change. You all have innovative ideas and you work with them every single day. You need to talk to your team members about their ideas and come up together with some new outside the box solutions, because you can do it. And let me tell you, if you give me that excuse that you have restraints on your resources, I'm going to be really upset, because innovation happens most effectively in environments which are chaotic and have constraints on resources. Tom Kelly, who's the CEO of this amazing organization called IDEO, who's instilling innovation in many, many organizations, has written this amazing book about this concept called The 10 Phases of Innovation, to remind us that we don't have to be a full package of Leonardo da Vinci to be effective. You can be the collaborator, you can be the hurdler, you can be the architect, you can be the storyteller, you can be the caregiver on the team, but you have a strong value in bringing a new innovative thought to your team and spur them on to do something new. So, as I say that, the point I'm trying to make is that there is not a dearth of innovative ideas. There is not a dearth or absence of innovative people. What becomes a barrier in innovation is the environment. People around you, your supervisors who are not focused on innovation, who do not want to challenge inertia, actually become your barriers in providing innovation. Culture of innovation takes a village to be created. Franz Johansson, his amazing book, The Medici Effect, one of the most phenomenal books around creating a culture of innovation, based on all the strategies of the Medici family, really gives us some good ideas. And the most important thing Franz Johansson talks about is the importance of patronage. He talks about the concept of intersection that the Medici family used. They translocated a lot of engineers, scholars, philosophers, painters, artists from all over the world and collected them in Florence. So as leaders, these innovators can have their thoughts collide so that the new out-of-the-box solution emerge. I'm going to challenge all of you. I'm going to challenge us as an organization, Society of Post-Acute Long-Term Care Medicine, to take the role of the Medici family for innovation in this era. If we, in the absence of such thought process, we will be stuck with the linear thought processes, which has brought up to this banded approaches of regulatory frameworks, non-communicating EHRs, which are taking us away from person-centered care. The AMDA board implemented the innovations platform of our advisory council last year, and I'm very happy to report that this amazing council, which is made up of entrepreneurs, clinicians, researchers, and experimenters, have really given me a hope for the very beautiful future. Innovation Platform for Advisory Council, or the IPAC, has a short-term mission and a long-term mission. For our short-term mission, we have already had some successes. How many of you have already listened to the amazing podcast, the AMDA on the Go? The idea here is that our clinicians in the trenches need some solutions to their disposal so they can have some impact right away. How about the Shark Tank 2 days ago? Well, Dr. Susan Levy said that it was really not a Shark Tank. We were all dolphins. We were too nice. But anyways, it gave us hope because many amazing ideas of approach to new approach were made available. And we are hopeful that in collaboration with these young entrepreneurs, we will be able to start thinking outside the box and promote some very innovative solutions to the problems we face. I absolutely believe and challenge myself as the chair of the IPAC that we have to work with the education committee to really look at some of the new educational strategies. A recent paper published actually in 2017 in JAMA shared this very important statistics that over the last 1 decade, we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in physician education, and we have luckily improved their knowledge gaps, but we have not changed their behavior. I will challenge IPAC to work with the education committee to come up with some behavioral economics based ideas where we can start changing physician behaviors. I would challenge IPAC to get ourselves into some very innovative ways to start teaching the staff members so they can really get to the gist of what we're trying to teach them. Second important wish list of mine is we have to start looking at the way we hold our nursing home staff accountable. A very old and antiquated stick and stick problem is not going to get us anywhere. We are merely sucking the energy and passion of our frontline staff by taking the credit away from them and really holding them responsible for all the outcomes. We have to start thinking about a motivational 3.0 framework to start thinking about accountability. We have to promote systems for autonomy, mastery, and purpose for our frontline staff so they don't need the stick approach to do better. We have to give them a lot of support and coaching. Why do we want to be relevant? Why do we really care? To address that, let me just go to the last story of the day for this talk. I'm going to go back to the great Steve Jobs. And by the way, no talk around innovation can be complete without mention of Steve Jobs. So as you know, he was fired from Apple in the 1980s, but a few years later in the 1990s, he was brought back by Apple to reinvigorate Apple. In his famous speech when he came back, he talked about and he proclaimed that innovation is going to be the solution for this organization. But he said in the same breath that we have to know why Apple wants to exist. And he talked about that he wants the world to see Apple not as somebody who makes machines, but that as an organization that really knows what its patients want, so much so that we know our patients better than the customers know themselves. I would challenge that we take heed from what Steve Jobs said. I think for us to understand us, for us to find the purpose in us, we really have to forget about technology for a second, because as Dr. Cheryl Phillips said, that technology should only be a tool. It should not be the driver. We have to really start understanding what the real needs of our patients are and what are the real needs of our team members. We really want to empower, need to understand them and work towards empowering them with technology so that they really become the CEO of their health and their future. In the end, I would like to end with a very favorite quote of Steve Jobs for me. He talks about innovators as we are crazy. He says, innovators push the human race forward, and while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. I would challenge all of us to be crazy, and let's start dreaming the future of post-acute long-term care we want for us to have. Thank you.